Chair, the vice chair is scheduled to be absent today.
Okay, all right. Then we are here. We have a quorum and it is 10 o'clock. So good morning, everybody. The time is 10:01. I'm sorry, are we recording? Ryan, Kenny?
We are recording now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. The time is 10:02 and I'll call the November 14, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. We are joined by Commissioner Washington.
Good morning.
And Commissioner Dorner.
Hello.
And Commissioner Giraldo.
This conference will now be recorded.
And I am Chair Shapiro. And are we okay? I just heard the recording notice. Do I need to start again?
There was a slight delay, Chair. You might have to start again.
Okay. Time is 10:02. We'll call the November 14th meeting to order again. We have Commissioners Washington, Giraldo, and Dorner here, and I'm Chair Shapiro. Moving forward to the business at hand, please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission of materials and exhibits was 12 noon the Tuesday before this planning board meeting. Registered speakers may join the meeting with the link provided in the email provided by the planning board office, or listen by phone by utilizing the call-in number that was provided in the email. Of course, anyone may tune in to watch the planning board meeting via live stream, and if you wish to speak or become a person of record, you'll see the ways to do that on the screen in front of you. In addition to the commissioners, we have our principal counsel, David Warner. We have Jessica Jones, our planning board administrator, Joe Parsons, our senior technical hearing writer, and Sherry Connor, our acting development review division chief. We also have staff members, Kenneth Flanagan and Brian Croner, helping us with technology quite ably, as always, behind the scenes. We're going to follow we'll take up the agenda as it's described on the order of cases as is noted on the agenda. And we'll start with item 1. This is a resolution of appreciation for Corporal Sean Hill. Corporal Hill is retired from the commission as of October 1st, 2024. He served 24 years as a law enforcement officer with the Maryland National Capital Park Police Prince George's County Division. He had many promotions. The promotion to corporal was in 2002. He was a patrol officer, a field training officer, a general instructor. He was also one of the first officers who was assigned to the Potomac River Waterfront Park, and he provided security to more than 100 special events at that location. So we want to thank Corporal Hill for his contributions to the commission, and we wish you a very happy retirement. Thank you, sir. So I would look for a motion to approve the resolution.
With my congratulations, I move approval, Mr. Chair.
I second that.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. If there's no discussion on the motion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Next is item 2 on our agenda. I'd look for a motion to approve draft minutes from October 31.
Approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo to approve the draft minutes of October 31, 2024. If there's no further discussion on the motion, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. We have no legislative items this week. We'll move to item 3C on our agenda. This is Community Planning Division, Port Town Sector Plan and Sectional Map Amendment. We have Josephine Selvakumar and Emily Lutz who will be presenting on this. This is not an action item, it's a briefing for us, but we're looking forward to hearing from the team on this important initiative. And I will turn it over to you all.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good morning, Chair Shapiro and members of the board. For the record, I'm Josephine Selvakumar, Project Manager for the Port Town Sector Plan and Sectional Map Amendment. This is item number 3C. The purpose of this agenda item is to present an update on the project progress, community feedback gathered through public engagement plan, and key themes shaping the plan's draft. I'm joined by Sarah Benton, Project Facilitator and Long Range Planning Supervisor, and Emily Lutz, a co-team member. Next slide, please. We'll start the presentation with the project background, brief on the public participation program, talking about the several engagement efforts undertaken over the year, the initial feedback received, and discuss the key themes shaping the plan's draft. Next slide, please. And now I'll provide a brief overview of the sector plan area and our general approach to developing the plan. Next slide. The Port Town sector plan area is approximately 1,935 acres. The sector plan area generally comprises the properties contained within the municipal boundaries of Bladensburg, Colma Manor, Cottage City, and Edmundston, all located within Subregion 2 and Council District 5. The town of Cottage City, Colma Manor, and Edmundston are in Planning Area 68, and the town of Bladensburg is in Planning Area 69. The project will cover areas within the Plan 2035's established community areas and neighborhood centers. The sector plan area includes major transportation routes and commercial corridors that impact the visual character and economic viability of these inner ring suburban communities. Bladensburg Road is an entryway to the Prince George's County from the District of Columbia, as well as a major commercial thoroughfare for the Port Town communities. US 1, Baltimore Avenue, and Maryland 201, Kenilworth Avenue are both prime routes for truck traffic and important commercial corridors. The sector plan area is largely residential, but contains a mix of other uses, including several shopping centers, employment areas, and portions of the northwest and northeast branches of the Anacostia River. Next slide. Our objective is to produce a draft sector plan and propose sectional map amendment through an inclusive participation process. And some of our major goals include identify and analyze the existing conditions, develop a new and realistic vision and goals for the area in collaboration with the community, provide policies and strategies for implementation, and advance Plan 2035. Next slide. The sector plan is organized around 8 elements from Plan 2035. Placemaking is another element we are using to analyze the plan, but it is not a Plan 2035 element. Next slide. Here's a summary of the project schedule. Planning Board requested District Council to initiate the project on September 28, 2023, and District Council initiated the project on October 24, 2023. We completed the existing conditions analysis, which is also published on an interactive and accessible online story map. We began the implementation of the public participation program in fall of 2023 and concluded our community engagement with the final open house in September 2024. We are now working on the draft plan. We then move into the legislative approval phase with the joint public hearing, Planning Board, and District Council actions in 2025. Unless a second joint public hearing is required, we'll push further delay the council action. Next slide. We reviewed data, conducted research and analysis, interviewed elected officials, and collaborated with county and state agencies and departments. We documented the existing conditions in a visually appealing story map, which is published online. Next slide. Roadside Howell Incorporate, RHI, and their subconsultants are providing the following services: assisting with the outreach efforts, worked alongside staff and conducted and facilitated community workshops, public open houses, and focus group to gather feedback, which we'll elaborate in the upcoming slides. The outreach support also included Spanish language translation and interpretation services, ensuring all materials are available in both English and Spanish. Determine the economic support and feasibility, detailing the redevelopment opportunities and barriers in the Port Town areas. Facilitate and develop a community-supported overall draft vision and plan goals through a community process, along with illustrative concepts, urban design, and renderings. Working with staff, analyzing the area's existing infrastructure and services, evaluate impacts of potential land use, zoning, and facility changes on demand for active and passive transportation facilities, and develop draft recommendations. Next slide. We'll now discuss our community engagement efforts over the past year and share our initial takeaways. Next slide. Community engagement is a major focus for the project team. The team made all efforts to meet people where they are, especially in their communities and at community events. We engage the community through a transparent and inclusive process while identifying and engaging those that have never participated. Recognizing that a significant percentage of residents within the proposed sector plan boundary are Hispanic, we provided Spanish language translation, interpretation, and engagement services throughout the planning process. This ensured their participation in the plan area. All engagement materials were available in both English and Spanish. Here's a summary of our community engagement. We had a public kickoff December 6, 2023 at the town of Colma Manor. Later hosted the open house in March in Edmonston Recreation Center, followed by workshop collaborating with placemaking section and town of Colma Manor at the Larcy Park, and concluded the final workshop in September in town of Cottage City. The team also created and facilitated steering committee meetings. We'll elaborate the role of steering committee in the upcoming slides. We hosted pop-ups, youth outreach, focus group meetings, walk audit, and attended several community events in all 4 municipalities throughout the Port Towns area. Next slide. In addition to the department's social media posts, postcards, and email blasts, we spread the word through newsletters, social media, and email blasts from all municipalities. The mayor of Colma Manor also helped the project team by using her WhatsApp contacts to reach out to Hispanic population in the town. The deputy project manager and the consultant fluent in Spanish went door to door, distributing flyers and talking to residents to promote the plan and events. Town managers and steering committee members assisted the project team in connecting with business owners, key community members, church groups, artists, apartment manager, and youth to promote the plan and conduct outreach. Steering committee members also spread the word in local community groups they are active in. We also connected with elected officials who helped spread the word and amplify our outreach events to the community contacts. Next slide. We connected with thousands of participants across various community events and held one-on-one conversations with over 350 attendees, gathering more than 540 comments. We engaged roughly around 50 students in youth events and collected about 215 comments. We conducted 2 series of focus group meetings, virtual and in person. Virtual focus group meetings were based on plan elements targeting stakeholders and steering committee members, where we engaged approximately 60 attendees. We also targeted artists, senior focus group meetings engaging around 15 attendees in each target groups, and on the whole collected about 400 plus comments. We hosted 2 virtual steering committee meetings engaging 10 to 15 attendees in each meeting and collected about 190 comments. We attended 8 municipal council briefings providing project updates. Our kickoff meeting engaged around 36 in person and 39 online attendees and collected about 160 comments. We engaged about 100 attendees in open house, collecting 300 plus comments, and engaged approximately 50 attendees and collected about 45 plus comments at our workshop and placemaking event. In addition to engaging with people in person, we also gathered online input after each event. Next slide. We'll now present the community engagements in detail and share the initial takeaways. We hosted the public kickoff at the town of Colma Manor. It was a hybrid event. We had Council Chair Ivy, mayors, commissioners, and council ward members attend the event. Thanks to Chair Shapiro for joining us in person and Commissioner Darnot, who joined us online. The kickoff focused on obtaining additional feedback for Port Town's strengths. weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We utilized an application called Slido that created a word cloud in real time, which provided a visual representation of attendee responses. We also had activity stations for in person attendees. Next slide. Here are the key points we gathered from our kickoff meeting. The large text signifies key phrases that were submitted the most from the audience. Interestingly, strengths and threats only had one phrase that stuck out for each category. People thought economic development was a strength for the area, and they also agreed that noise pollution was the biggest threat. For weaknesses, attendees noted wide autocentric roads that created ugly corridors. The current street design makes the area feel like a pass-through town with no sense of place and branding. Attendees felt the greatest opportunity for the future was to engage Port Town's youth. Also, making space for our furry companions was another noted opportunity. Next slide. The project team created a steering committee that is composed of an interdisciplinary and diverse group of people that will advise on goals, policies, and strategies to implement the vision and build upon the area's strength and opportunities. We hosted 2 virtual steering committee meetings. The committee has been a liaison in connecting with the broader community, and they helped us huge in getting the word out for all the community events. I will now turn it over to Emily to discuss other community efforts and key takeaways.
Thank you, Josephine. Next slide, please. The Prince George's County Planning Department held an in-person community open house at the Edmonston Recreation Center, where attendees participated with activity boards. At this open house, the boards asked questions to better understand where the community wanted to go for its future so we could start crafting a draft vision statement. Next slide. We heard the vision for this area should build off its great community that's family-oriented and diverse, embrace access to nature, and incorporate its small town feel. It was important that the vision encompasses a future with healthy food options, safer roads, greater multimodal connectivity, and a stronger sense of place with an emphasis on the waterfront. Next slide. In April, the project team held a series of focus groups to gain insight from experts in order for us to craft feasible and implementable policies for each plan element. We heard from specialists in their respective fields, and we utilized mural boards for everyone to have space and time to participate. Some notable feedback we received was historic sites should be accessible and engaging, public facilities should include climate resilience initiatives, anti-displacement plans are key as Port Towns redevelops, stormwater management should be solved with more natural systems, and lastly, the team should focus on transportation equity. Next slide. In June, the Port Towns team, in collaboration with the Prince George's County Placemaking Section, hosted an interactive outdoor workshop at the Larcy Spark event to engage the public in shaping how we live, shop, eat, create, recreate, and get around in the future Port Towns. Next slide. The word cloud summarizes the feedback we received at each station, which covers all the topics just mentioned in the previous slide. Attendees noted future improvements should be mindful of safety, include future mixed-use developments, provide a wider range of housing options, conduct sidewalk improvements, and add amenities for youth. Next slide. Throughout the summer, the team attended events to make sure we were present in the community and offer additional opportunities for people to participate. The team held 2 pop-ups, Coffee with Planners at a local restaurant, and another one at Autumn Woods Apartments. We also attended community events such as Cottage City Day and National Night Out. And lastly, we found additional opportunities to engage with youth and attended a youth council meeting. The next couple of slides highlights what we heard from a couple of these events. Next slide. At the Autumn Woods pop-up, we heard it was important to improve pedestrian safety. There was a lack of affordable housing. Residents were missing access to healthy food options, and they wanted additional investment in parks and historic landscapes. Next slide. At Cottage City Day, we heard that people would like walkable and bikeable areas, investments and additions to the Anacostia River trails, more wellness programs, and access to healthy food options. Next slide. At this point in the project, we evaluated whose voices were missing in the feedback we obtained so far, so we held 2 additional focus groups to make sure we heard their perspectives. In August, we went to the Emerson House in Bladensburg and talked with seniors about aging in place, affordability, and transportation. Next slide. We heard it was important to have services that supported seniors, and particularly transportation to access services was at the forefront of this discussion. We also heard that a quiet community, the ability to age in place, branding, and more service activities was also important to them. Next slide. We also held a focus group with local artists because we felt it was important to understand what artists needed for us to write effective policies on public art and sense of place, given that we heard this request from the community throughout this participation program. Artists from the region joined us at Public Playhouse to discuss the challenges and opportunities for cultural artistic expression in port towns. Next slide. We heard that the area is missing artist venues. It was important to have both public and private investment for art installations. They'd like to see more promotion of the Public Playhouse and ultimately have a space that supports all different forms of community artists. Next slide. As you've probably recognized by this point, pedestrian safety and walkability is important to this community. So the project team conducted a walk audit in partnership with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, also known as WABA, and a teen action group that meets at the Bladensburg Library. We made a loop with the start and end point of the Bladensburg Library by walking along Annapolis Road, 54th Street, Tilden Road, and Edmonston Road. During this walk audit, attendees noted missing bike and ped infrastructure and general street safety items as part of this exercise. Next slide. The team also attended a youth council group with the End Time Harvest Ministries, where we discussed their favorite places, their preferred method of travel, and challenges for the area. Next slide. This is a combined list of what we heard at both the walk audit and youth council. In general, we heard that the area is auto-oriented and there are missing bicycle and pedestrian connections, which are needed for greater walkability and bikeability. We also heard that the area has no identity, appears run down, and there is a need for additional recreational amenities. Next slide, please. We ended our public participation efforts with a combined open house and workshop at Cottage City Town Hall. We asked for feedback on draft goals and policies for each element, in addition to development scenarios for a few opportunity sites. Next slide. Again, we heard that the area is auto-oriented and auto-dependent, that there was excessive traffic, and they would like to see more options for walking, biking, and transit. The environment and Anacostia River's health were also a top priority as the area redevelops. Other notable responses included incorporating urban agriculture and creating a sense of place. And with that, I'll now pass it over to Josephine.
Thank you, Emily. Next slide. Here are the key themes from all the community events and feedback we collected so far. Design complete and connected streets. Safe, accessible streets for pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, and public transit are frequently mentioned. Ensuring a well-connected street network that provides multiple routes and easy access to key destinations, along with incorporating green infrastructure, is the most heard theme from the engagement efforts. Experience a diverse small town community. The community values the small town feel and aims to promote local diverse businesses, support small businesses, enrich the town's history and culture, foster inclusivity, and support the arts. Create sense of place. Transform port towns from a pass-through place from District of Columbia into a destination by celebrating local identity, creating diverse experience and design for people. Promote affordable housing and age in place. Integrate services to support housing developments for older adults to age in place and offer a variety of housing choices. Invest in youth. By providing educational opportunities, foster entrepreneurship, build life skills, and promote health and wellness. Create mixed use areas in significant locations by creating vibrant, walkable communities by integrating residential, commercial, and recreational spaces. Encourage healthy food and environment by supporting local food systems, improving food access, and sustainable practices. Staff will develop draft goals, policies, and strategies based on these key themes and feedback received with the aim to obtain permission to print in 2025. This concludes the staff presentation, and the team is available to take any questions you may have.
Wow, I'm impressed. Let me just say that's an amazing amount of community engagement. Just impressive in all sorts of ways. Colleagues, commissioners, questions for staff?
So I'll chime in and reiterate what the chair said. Like, I think this has been great. You all have done really good engagement. When I was on the online session, it was really impressive how quickly the translation was working. It was super seamless, flipping back and forth between Spanish and English. And that was really nice to see how you're trying to focus in on the people that live there and really bring them into this. I think it's really important as we're trying to create senses of place. One suggestion actually on this slide is that I like all the pictures, but it's just basically our stuff. It's the Bladensburg Park and then the monument right there. So I would suggest taking other pictures, maybe of like the businesses around there, like the big shopping malls or something else that would create a sense of place here, because those aren't the only things here. And that's not what's being conveyed in the slides. Like the slides are talking about safer roads or business development. And that's not what I get out of these pictures. So I would suggest like putting in a thumbnail of like the new library, which looks fantastic, or some of the other streetscapes or something else to kind of convey that a little bit better. I absolutely love the waterfront park and go there when it's nice outside and love doing that. But I just think there needs to be a little bit better kind of like intro slide right there or pictures right there to really convey what this is about. And in the slide about the youth comments, I absolutely would agree. I really like seeing that you all did the walkthrough and walk the community, because many times when we are putting together cases, people ask us, "Oh, have you been there? Or do you know my community?" And if you don't actually go and experience it, it's really hard to plan because you're just an outsider. You're not actually planning for how it's actually used. And if you walk down that strip of road right there where some of it was on some of the businesses, where the library is located and some of the side streets, you'll know that it's not at all safe to walk around there. Cars are doing crazy things and using the suicide lane, and it's just really erratic behavior right there. And that's one of the main drives like through this sector that bring in people. And we need to figure out how do we make that more approachable, because the kids and the youth honed in on it really well, that it's not safe, that there's not really good crosswalks, that they want to walk, and that's how they experience where they live. So we need to figure out like how do we make that a better experience, because it's reiterated across that side in a number of different ways that they're saying they're not safe. And these are people who are walking around, want to go to their friends' houses or businesses or parks or whatever it is, and they can't get there safely, or they don't feel that they're getting there safely. That's not good, because then that discourages them from interacting with the many things that we try and provide to them with the different community centers and parks and playgrounds, and ways that we want them to get out and experience their community in a healthy and safe way. So there's a conflict there where we're not able to get people to where we want them to be in our parks and our places, or even the local businesses which would like to have them there. Because they don't feel safe doing that. And that's going to keep them at home and unfortunately not interact in the community. So I would encourage you to really take that to heart, because I think that's extremely important and it's very insightful. And it's true in other areas around the port towns. Like if you go back up into Edmonston or other places, like where we had the event, with all the community charades and stuff, like that was fantastic. You had music out there and people came, but just me biking down to there wasn't safe. Really going down onto that place, and it was hard for me to get from the trails to that location, because there was a gate that was closed and was locked, and the only way to get to it was to go up and off onto the grass to do it. And if you have a stroller or other kind of like device that you're like lugging behind, you can't navigate off the trails and get to the communities and places there easily or safely. So I think safety to me would be one of the utmost things that we need to address there, because there's tons of ways that you can engage in that community in this sector plan. And we just need to figure out how do we get people to locations safer and faster so they can do that and take advantage of where they live. But otherwise, like, I think it's great. The ideas are really nice. The ways that you're engaging with people in different ways is fantastic. So keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to dovetail on those comments. I'm really impressed by the engagement of the public, and I agree. The safety is definitely an issue in that area. I don't live there, but I travel there through sometimes, and it's chaotic, especially with the cars with Kenilworth Avenue, Bladensburg, Route 1. It's just it's a chore for anybody to cross or walk or do anything other than drive your car through there. So I think a focus on that would be important, especially for the people living in the community. Thank you again for that presentation.
I would, just a few things to add. First of all, I'd associate myself with my colleagues' comments. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm curious, questions for you all. Curious about if you could flesh out a little bit what the partnership, what the participation was like, the involvement was like with some of our sister agencies. DPR, our own Department of Parks and Recreation, which, obviously is all over this.
Right.
And then on DPW&T, the Economic Development Corporation, the Economic Development Cluster at large, even PGPD, there's so many issues related to safety. So how and if you did engage, how did you engage? And talk to us a bit about that.
We've been engaging. We had stakeholder meetings and interviews, and we did talk to Parks and DPW&T. We had interviews with them, and then at every stage of the engagement, whatever comments we received, we had discussions with them. And capital bike share and other things came up a lot. And I know Commissioner Donald had mentioned about that in the past meetings as well. So we did talk to the representatives there, and we've been having meetings and exchanging emails, and then keeping them in the loop. And Parks have been really helpful with the process. As we developed the draft plan, we also had online, after every event, we post everything online, and we asked all the stakeholders to go see. We had a 2-week time window where they go see all the exhibit boards and everything. We went out to the community, and there was a survey for them to go and give their comments. So we did receive their comments through that tool, through our website and through the survey form.
That's great. That's great to hear. It really is. I don't know how that gets reflected, if there's a way to make sure that pops out a bit in what you produce, because I think those kinds of partnerships really make a difference. Maybe you're already doing that, but it would be helpful for me, for us, and for the public to see that.
Right. And yes, we communicated with the elected officials, stakeholders, and in addition, we also have steering committee members, which also have stakeholders in the steering committee. So we contacted them in person and also collected feedback through online after we engaged the community to consult and get their opinion, what they think about the feedback and what's there, what's lacking, and what we had to do.
Gotcha. And I'm telling you something you already know, but so many times with these sector plans, it's not always an issue of if only we had the zoning right, then everything would be perfect in the community. That's just not the way it works. And this is a prime example of this. What you all are talking around essentially an economic development plan. That's what this community needs. And I think we, as planners, have a role in helping to sort of direct that, even if that's not the primary mission. Essentially, that's what I'm hearing you all do, is laying out the basics of an economic development plan. And so for me, what that means is focus, geographic focus, what would the downtown look like and where would it be? What do we need to do to get market forces to kick in? And that's not about encouraging displacement. It's about getting the capital markets to help us accomplish. The only way we can accomplish what we want to accomplish is if market forces kick in. And so, and then that piece you talked about placemaking, but there's just nothing more important in this area than it comes to figuring out how we brand this. So, I'm hearing that all throughout what you all are doing, but I'm just encouraging you strongly to lead with that the importance of identity and branding and again, focus and looking at this through an economic development lens. Just nothing's more important than that. And I loved hearing the kids when you got the feedback from the youth. It's like, wow, I didn't know that all these young people were economic development professionals, but they nailed it, didn't they?
Yes, we made sure that we target different age groups to get input from everyone. So that's the main reason. And we were surprised to see youth being so involved. We tried to make it interesting for them. We tried pizza and youth, coffee with planners to engage, to keep them talking.
So it's good when you feed them. That works for adults and kids. So
yes, that's true.
No problems there. So again, the more you can think of that, because I would love this, as I know you would, I would love for this product to really be catalytic. So it's a very unique opportunity in an area that's ripe for it. So thank you for all of the hard work. I mean, we all know, I think I can speak on behalf of all my colleagues, how much work has gone into this so far. So thank you. Thanks for all you're doing.
Great job.
I want to dovetail on one other thing that the chair brought up in terms of connecting communities and with agencies. So one of the things, since you mentioned the bike shares, the county has around 30 different, a little bit less, like bike share stations that they're going to be rolling out over the next couple of years in different places. Strategically, I think one of them is going to be at the Bladensburg waterfront, and then there's a number of other locations that they've cited. It would be good to somehow work that in here as well to show how we're trying to connect the community and the places that are set up or kind of like tagged for where they will be around in this area. Because to me, one of the challenges is if I don't have a bike and I'm in this community, how do I get around? And bike shares is one of the ways we can do that. They have subsidies for lower income individuals that could actually get subsidized programs that could have memberships to it and could use the bikes. If we can get people to the waterfront, we can get people in from DC as well. So if we had a bike share there and we had a bike share on the Kenilworth Aquatic Garden that connects to the trail later on, we're getting really close to being able to connect people in bike share systems to DC. And that makes it a lot easier for people to travel around. I use the system to go to different metro stations and get around because I'm not always on my own bike. And it's very convenient when I grab that because it speeds me up considerably. And something that would be a 30-minute walk or a 40-minute walk all of a sudden becomes a 10 or 12-minute bike ride. Next stuff very well. And if we can look at like the high school, you have the Bladensburg High School right over there, like thinking about places where you would put bikes to connect different paths to get people there, I think would really open up the mobility in the community. And that should be another kind of aspect of this in terms of like, not just improving where businesses are located or where people are at, but getting people to and from there too. You got to be people movers as well. So really think about that, and I encourage you to connect with the parks group that is working on that, so that way you're actively involved with them and you can make suggestions if some places seem a little bit better to put, because they're trying to strategically decide, is it destinations that we need to put bike shares at, or is it like location or things where people are coming to and from, and just putting them as segments in there to like connect the system together a bit.
Sure.
All right. Other thoughts, comments? Not. Thank you, team. Top to bottom on this one. Thank you all. Excellent work, and we will hear more. I know. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Commissioners, we'll move on item 3D on our agenda. This is a Parks and Rec item, Washington Capitals skate rink. We have Ms. Stesney, Ms. Wurstel, Ms. Wright, who will be presenting. This is an action item, and I will turn it over to the Parks and Rec team. Director Tyler, are you there? You want to say anything up front?
Well, as always, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. I will be turning it over to this wonderful team to give you this presentation.
Since you are sitting at the beach, we understand that you don't want to be talking a whole lot.
Well, sir, it's the winter doldrums kicking in, and I need something to get me through.
That'll work. It's inspiring. All right, we'll turn to Ms. Stesney and the rest of the team and take it away.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Bridget Stesney. I'm the Division Chief for Capital Planning and Development here at the Parks Department. Earlier this year, the Washington Capitals approached us about a proposal to construct an outdoor inline skate park in the county. They have successfully worked with Prince George's County Public Schools and would really like to expand their access and knowledge to the game of hockey. So the Capitals wanted to provide additional facilities where kids can practice their skills, participate in clinics, and learn more about the sport. They have successfully built these facilities in Alexandria, Loudoun County, Fredericksburg, Frederick County, Montgomery County, and Hagerstown. And as part of this project, they proposed to display their logo on the rink for a period of 10 years. So this proposal triggers review under the naming rights, advertising rights, and sponsorship benefits policy that the Planning Board adopted in March 2024. So this is the second time I believe you've been presented with a partnership proposal like this. And so we wanted to walk you through it today, refresh your memory on the policies, show you how that is applicable to this proposal from the Washington Capitals. So Claire Wurstel, our capital budget manager, is going to walk you through the presentation. Next slide.
Claire, you're on mute. We can't hear you. No. Change your microphone. Take your time. But you're off mute, but you're on the wrong microphone.
Is
it working now?
Yes. All right. You're on.
Okay. I figured it out. Okay. All right. So good morning, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Claire Wurstel. I'm the Capital Budget Manager for the Department of Parks and Recreation in Prince George's County. By way of reminder, on March 21st, 2024, the Planning Board adopted a naming rights, advertising rights, and sponsorship benefits policy. The policy covers proposals of in-kind support, meaning work performed for us, as with the Washington Capitals, as they propose to do, that are over $25,000. Washington Capitals' proposal is in excess of that amount, so pursuant to the policy, a legal entity such as the Washington Capitals can propose to provide in-kind support for a park asset, in this case, an outdoor hockey rink, and receive a sponsorship benefit in return. A sponsorship benefit is a community benefit of specified duration that is established pursuant to a definitive agreement that obligates the Commission to display the trademark of the legal entity, the Washington Capitals, for a specific period of time. Next slide, please. The policy says that as to park assets, such as the proposed inline skating rink for sponsorship benefits, the Commission has delegated to the Planning Board the authority to declare park assets as eligible for sponsorship benefits. By adoption of the policy in March 2024, the Planning Board delegated to the Department of Parks and Recreation the authority to declare park assets as eligible for sponsorship benefits. So why are we bringing this proposal to you today if the authority has been delegated? Is because the policy also says that if the proposal has a commercial value of $100,000 or more, it must be presented to the planning board for approval, and this does exceed $100,000. Next slide, please. So the Washington Capitals have approached us requesting to install an outdoor inline skating rink at the Westphalia Community Center. Many sites were explored, but this is one that was chosen due to its large flat area available outside of the floodplain and its access to major roadways. Here's a rendering of what the Washington Capitals would install at Westphalia Community Center. Similar projects have been completed in multiple communities throughout the DMV, including a facility in the Montgomery Park system at Dewey Local Park. Next slide. So the Washington Capitals value the potential gift at $250,000. As part of our MOU with the Capitals, they will contract with Clark Construction to install a 100 by 200 asphalt pad, an ADA compliant walkway, a concrete pad for bleachers and electrical facilities. They will then contract with Riley Manufacturing to install the dasher board system and the Mataflex sports deck, fencing, goals, benches, and a Daktronics sports scoreboard. MNC PPC will obtain the necessary permits and hire its own contractor to install bleachers, shade, stormwater management facilities, and a storage shed. Next slide. In addition to installing the rink, the Washington Capitals will provide other community benefits, including providing the hockey equipment to the Westphalia Community Center upon completion of the rink. The equipment will be stored in the shed that the commission will construct. They have already provided instruction for teachers and staff at the Prince George's County Public Schools on street hockey and how to teach students to play street hockey, including providing a written curriculum for teaching street hockey to each of the schools. They will seek to bring kids out to practice those skills on this rink through multiple community events that they intend to host. They will also train MNC PPC staff to run programming at the rink. Next slide. The proposed length of the agreement is 10 years. The Washington Capitals seeks the right to display its logos of itself and Alex Ovechkin on the rink. There would also be a logo for Capital One, the Washington Capitals official sponsor, on the scoreboard, and the Parks and Recreation logo, of course. MNC PPC must agree not to permit advertisements of competitors of the Washington Capitals or Capital One Bank on the facility. And if we choose to name the facility, the Capitals must approve of the name. Next slide. Based on the timeline for construction, the Washington Capitals seek to host jointly with MNC PPC a groundbreaking ceremony in December and a grand opening in late spring. Alex Ovechkin, as well as other representatives from the Washington Capitals, will participate in these events to coincide with the Washington Capitals' 50th anniversary. We request that the Planning Board approve the in-kind donation and associated sponsorship benefits. Thank you for your time today, and I will answer any questions that you have.
I have a question.
Worstel, yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think it's wonderful, but I'm thinking back at the budget hearing and everybody, all the people that showed up at the budget hearing about our rink in College Park. Is there any way that could be brought into this somehow?
So we did explore that location, and there were two reasons that location was not chosen. One, the entire site is in the floodplain. So it would require extensive additional permitting and stormwater management. And because of the fact that we are exploring the replacement of that building completely, the Wells Ice Rink completely inclined, we thought that it would not necessarily be a great idea to impact that reconstruction by putting a facility on the site that we then could not move. If we needed to expand that facility.
So what's the projection in terms of with the Wells Rink?
We do not have a projection at the moment. We are going to be presenting to the Planning Board our budget the first week of December, but we are including funding for the design of that facility in our upcoming budget.
So you're doing that so that it would have to be, so what's the long range outlook? So I'm thinking we had all those people that use the wells, right? Everybody was extremely positive about it. And what they're seeking is to, I guess, make it an indoor rink. So what, if we're going to tear it down, do we know how long it would be before it's redone?
Not
would
yet.
be multiple years. Oh, go ahead, Bridget.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, I think we heard everybody as well and agree that it's something that we need to prioritize in our budget. But we don't have a timeline yet.
Okay, but so I'm not sure. So the thought is to tear it down and to build a new structure. Okay, but you just said it was in a floodplain, so I'm trying to square off those two things.
It is. It doesn't mean we can't build in the floodplain. It just means it requires a different kind of permitting and expense, right? There are different regulations when you're building in the floodplain. And so doing that for this donation of a rink just seemed like we're putting a stake in the ground, right? They want a 10-year partnership agreement, and I don't think Wells Linson can wait 10 years, right? And so we explored other spots with them.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'm not sure, Claire, they had other requirements as well of what they were looking for.
They did have equity-related requirements, income-related requirements, and the income in that particular community was a little bit too high.
Anybody explore a public-private partnership to get that done?
Commissioner Giraldo, let me jump in just real quick. The department is really looking hard at other P3s, and this is going to be part of that process that we go through. We believe there are some opportunities, so we'll be bringing that to you at another time.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Commissioner Washington.
Thank you. Well, great job, team. I think this is fantastic. My question, you mentioned that they have engaged in these type of partnerships around the region. I just wonder if you know how comparable their proposal to us is to those partnerships, especially Montgomery County, where I would imagine we could be pretty transparent.
Sure. We were provided with all the MOUs that they have with the other communities so that we could review them, and they're almost identical. They provide the public schools with the same benefit of really trying to go into the school system and expand the reach of hockey. They are providing access via providing equipment, doing clinics at all these rinks, at all these other locations, and the design is comparable. It's almost identical. They've enhanced it over the years, so I think we're probably getting a more thoughtful product than when they started out. They've kind of worked out the kinks.
Wonderful. And is there anything that they did not propose that you all think we should have and should be included?
I don't believe so. We did quite a lot of back and forth with them and negotiation to get to the point where, we have Clark Construction coming in and donating in-kind services. A lot of the other rinks, the site prep is done by the community partner. In this case, we are not doing that site prep because Clark Construction is doing so. And that was a negotiated piece of the agreement.
Great job. Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Washington, I just happened to be in Montgomery when we started this transition from an outdoor rink over at Dewey, and was very impressed with how the Capitals worked with us to do that work. They were very open, very amenable to any changes, and to my knowledge, the partnership has continued in a very, very positive way. So I'm very familiar with this, and it's going to be a very, very good amenity for that area.
That's fantastic. I think it'll be a great addition to the community. Thank you, Director Tyler.
You're welcome.
Other questions, commissioners?
I just want to point out that if we go through this, we should probably do outreach to the HOA that's just south of there, because they had come in and had wanted more amenities for the community and have been vocal in some other cases. So just letting them know that we're doing this would probably be received pretty well. That community center is incredibly fantastic. It's like one of my favorite that we have in the county. And like, I like running the 50-yard dash there, and like the playground stuff is like super awesome. So having this additional like outdoor roller skating area and hockey area is going to be, I think, really cool, because it really elevates like the whole range of sports options that you can do at that community center. So I'm definitely very happy to see this going in and look forward to seeing people out there playing.
Agreed. Can you give me just a flavor of the stakeholder outreach that's been done, building off Commissioner Dorner's, but communications with the council member, other community stake. I mean, I just want to see who, if anybody's going to be surprised by this, or are folks already sort of aware that this is in the works?
So we are very early in this process, still in bringing it to you. We were not able to go out yet because we had to, as part of this MOU process, the MOU gets signed and then they go to National Hockey in order to get the funding, the grant funding to do this.
Okay.
And so what our plan is for the groundbreaking ceremony that we are going to begin as soon as we get all this signed off on. We are going to begin reaching out to the community to inform them that this is happening, reaching out to the council member. We are going to have a groundbreaking ceremony that everyone is going to be invited to. And that's going to really kick this off.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay. Nice work, folks. This is an action item. If there are no more questions, we would look for a motion to approve this expenditure. Is that what we're looking at? Mr. Warner, others? Is it that simple? Ms. Worstel, Ms.
I
Desney?
believe it's a resolution.
Okay.
Move approval.
Yeah, I don't have any backup on it. So
I don't believe we have a resolution. Do we?
I believe we sent language to James this morning.
There was not a resolution, but it was some language. I thought maybe for the approval of this item, but I didn't receive a resolution. Just some language for approval, maybe.
all right, well, let's not worry too much about that. For the record, that was Joe Parsons, so I would look for approval of this item, and we'll make sure that we get exactly what it is that we're approving right. If there's any issues, it'll come back to us, but I assume this will be good enough. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, it would be satisfactory. That, I believe, is what we did on the previous proposal for
Excellent.
sponsorship agreement.
Yeah, because we're just acting on our policy. So I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington and a second by Commissioner Giraldo with no discussion. Thanks again, team. Well, good work. Looking forward to this one. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. All right. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, items 4A and C. Anyone who wishes to oppose staff's recommendations in these items, or board members who wishes to discuss any? If not, I would look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, after consideration of the record for item numbers 4A and C, I move adoption of the staff findings and approval of the items on the consent agenda in accordance with the recommendations of staff.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo with no discussion. I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. We'll move on to our regular agenda items. First item 5 on our agenda, preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24007, Melford Towns. Ms. Stransonetti is representing the applicant. Ms. Gupta will be giving the staff presentation. This is an evidentiary hearing. I don't think we have anyone who signed up to speak on this, but we have Mr. Minor from the city of Bowie. If there is any more formal process that we'll kick into, I'll go through the rules that we take up during an evidentiary hearing, but let us start with Ms. Gupta for the staff presentation. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Doing a quick sound check.
We can hear you. You're a little soft, but we can hear you.
How about now?
A little better.
Oh, okay. I increased my volume.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning again, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, I am Ritula Gupta with the subdivision section. Item number 5 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24007 titled Melford Towns. This subdivision proposes 29 lots and 4 parcels for development of 29 single-family attached dwelling units. This application is supported by an approved certificate of adequacy ADQ-2024-008. The property is also located within the municipal limits of the city of Bowie. The applicant requests a variation from section 24-122A of the prior subdivision regulations for provision of public utility easements along public rights-of-way. The applicant also requests a variation from section 24-128B7A for 12 lots to be served by private alleys without having frontage on a public right-of-way. These variation requests are discussed further on pages 22-28 of the technical staff report. The applicant requested 4 minor revisions to staff's recommended conditions, which are included in the additional backup as applicant's Exhibit 1. The applicant also requested 1 revision to finding 3 on page 13 regarding the total number of dwelling units in the overall Melford development. Staff has reviewed the proposed revisions and are in agreement with them. No community member has provided any feedback to staff or signed up to speak. By letter dated August 8, 2024, the City of Bowie recommended approval of the preliminary plan with no conditions. In conclusion, based on the findings presented in the technical staff report, staff recommend that the Planning Board approve this preliminary plan of subdivision 4-24007, Type 1 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 1-044-98-06 and variations from sections 24-122A and 24-128B7A, subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report and as modified by applicant's Exhibit 1. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gupta. If there's no questions for staff, commissioners, I will turn to the applicant, Mr. Antonetti.
Good morning, Chair Shapiro, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Robert Antonetti with the law firm of Shipley and Horn. With me today is my partner, Arthur Horn, and senior land planner, John Ferrante, and we are pleased to represent the applicant in this case, St. John Properties. Today with me, members of the development team, I have Mr. Andrew Round, Ken Finley, and Matt Destino from the applicant, Ms. Rachel Leitzinger and Brian Folk from Dewberry Civil Engineers, and Mr. Mike Lenhart from Lenhart Traffic Consulting. I want to thank Ms. Gupta for her thorough review. She's incredibly professional, she's incredibly responsive, and just it's a pleasure to be able to work with her on applications. With regards to this application, as you heard, this is a further subdivision of the Melford, the mixed-use component of Melford, the Melford Town Center. This is a provision of additional townhomes. They are primarily taking over a space that was previously approved for a multifamily building as part of the Melford Mansions. That building will be removed, and those units will be reabsorbed inside the remainder portion of the Melford Mansion site on the north side of Lake Melford Avenue, to be shown in a future detailed site plan. We do agree with the staff recommendations and conditions of approval in this case, subject to the minor revisions set forth in the applicant's exhibits regarding the conditions and the additional finding. With that, we respectfully request your support of this application. Our team is here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Antonetti. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant at this point? Seeing none, I'll turn to our speakers list. I believe, Mr. Minor, you were signed up to speak. If you do, I will swear you in. Are you there? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Minor, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great. Consider yourself under oath and introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Shapiro, and good morning, Planning Board members. I'm Joe Minor, the City of Bowie Planning Director, just here in support of the staff recommendation for this preliminary plan. The City Council did review this at a public agenda back in August, didn't see any issues with the plan, and we recommend approval going forward. So that's the input that I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Thanks as always for all your work on this. I don't think we have, commissioners, any questions for Mr. Minor, City of Bowie? I don't think we have anyone else who signed up to speak. Am I missing anybody? Going once, going twice? If not, then I will close this public hearing. Commissioners, over to you for any deliberation, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff to include the modified finding to finding 3 as detailed in applicant exhibit number 2 and approve preliminary plan 4-24007 TCP 1-044-98-06 and variation from section 24-122A and variation from section 24-128B7A to include the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 1.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Gupta. Thank you, Mr. Antonetti. Item 6 on our agenda is detailed site plan DSP 20050-02 Stevens Crossing at Brandywine. We have Mr. Huang will be giving a staff presentation, I believe, yes. And we have Mr. Gibbs who will be representing the applicant. This is a request for a continuance to November 21, 2024. Mr. Huang, I'll turn it over to you for a staff presentation on the request for a continuance.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of planning boards.
You're very soft, Mr. Huang.
Okay, let me speak louder.
There we
How
go.
about now? Okay.
Yes. Pretend you're yelling at Ms. Gupta. That'll work.
Okay, I'll try. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of planning board. For the record, I'm Emery Huang with Urban Design Sections. Item number 6 is detailed site plan DSP-20050-02 Stevens Crossing, which amends DSP-20050 to develop 67 additional townhouse units, eliminated 116 2/2 units, add a townhouse architectural model, and add a roundabout at the intersection of Cattell Way and Mata Woman Drive. In addition, this detailed site plan application requests an amendment to conceptual site plan CSP-09003 to eliminate the previously approved 116 2/2 units and increase the maximum number of townhouse units up to 497, which within the entire Stevens Crossing development. As a matter of housekeeping, one exhibit was received from the applicants prior to November 12 noon daylight, which is titled Applicants Exhibit 1. In that exhibit, the attorney representing the applicants, Mr. Ed Gibbs, requested to continue this application to November 21st, 2024 due to a hearing conflict and with the 70-day processing time period, which will expire on November 19, 2024. Staff recommended the planning board approves the request for continuance to November 21st, 2024, and this concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huang. There's no questions for staff on this request. I will turn to the applicant. Do we have Mr. Gibbs here? Mr. Huang, we don't?
I think he's in court right now. I'm the applicant with DSC Stevens LC, so just want to echo what Ed said in the letter and ask that we can come back next week since he can't be here.
Okay, Mr. Burke, thank you very much for letting us know. Commissioners, if there's no questions for staff or for the applicant, we've got a request for continuance before us. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the applicant's request to continue DSP-20050-02 to planning board hearing date of November 21st, 2024.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Burke, and thank you, Mr. Huang. Move on to item 7 on our agenda. This is detailed site plan DSP 23003 Penn Place 1. This case was moved from the planning board meeting of November 7th. We have Mr. Vyas, who will be representing the applicant. And we have Mr. Price, who will be giving the staff presentation. And I will turn to staff. This is an evidentiary hearing. If we have folks who are signed up to speak, I'll swear them into the appropriate time. Mr. Warner, do I need to swear in Mr. Vyas when the time comes? Since he is not an attorney?
Yes, I don't know.
Yes, you do.
Okay, all right. Well,
you're on behalf of the applicant, you said? Is he?
Yes, he's an engineer speaking on behalf of the applicant. It's not a big deal, but we'll swear you in when the time comes. Mr. Price, we don't need to swear you in, and this is your time is yours for the staff presentation. Take it away.
A quick sound check.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I'm Todd Price with the Urban Design Section. Item 7, detailed site plan DSP-23003 and Type 2 tree conservation plan TCP2-039-2024 for Penn Place 1 is requesting approval for the development of 4 multifamily buildings containing a total of 168 residential units and 767 square feet of office space, as well as the associated parking and recreation facilities. Staff has not received any opposition to this application. Staff recommend the Planning Board adopt the findings of the technical staff report and approve DSP-23003 and TCP2-039-2024, subject to the conditions found in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Commissioners, any questions for staff at this point? Seeing none, we'll turn to the applicant. Mr. Vyas, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. And we do need to swear you in. You'll be representing the applicant. If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you are under oath, and introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Shapiro and members of the board. For record, Chinmay Vyas, PE with CV Inc., representing the applicant's case here today. I'm here to answer any questions and just to say that we agree with staff's recommendations here and we do not propose any changes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vyas. I also see Mr. Sood with Velocity Companies. If you want to speak, I'm happy to swear you in if there's anything you want to add, but there's no need to, Mr. Sir.
I don't need to be sworn in at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, first of all, is there anyone else who signed up to speak who I'm missing on this? This is a public hearing. I don't see anybody. We do have questions. Commissioner Giraldo, questions for staff or the applicant or both?
For the applicant, so I see in the conditions that they're going to remove the pet waste stations and pet water stations from the recreational facility calculations. Is that where they're going to be located? I just want to be sure.
So this application, if you can zoom into that particular, we can explain, but does have a full recreation package that is submitted with this, which serves not just this property, but also the one on the adjacent. And an updated recreation facility agreement, including the costing, has been submitted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any other questions for staff or the applicant? Seeing none, I will close this public hearing. And commissioners, if there's no deliberations, what's your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and approve DSP-23003 and TCP2-039-2024 to include the conditions as detailed in staff's report.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Commissioner Giraldo. With no discussion, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it, 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Sood, Mr. Vyas. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Move on to item 8 on our agenda. This is a preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23041, Redeemed Christian Church of God. This case was moved from planning board meeting of November 7th. The applicant is requesting a continuance to December 5th. So what is before us is not the case, but what is before us is a request for a continuance. I just want to be clear about that because we have a number of folks who signed up to speak. And I just want to make sure if folks do want to speak to the request for a continuance, they can, but not on the sort of content of the case. So we'll start with a staff presentation by Mr. Bartlett, and then we have Mr. Horn, who's representing the applicant. And again, we'll start with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, I am Jason Bartlett with the subdivision section. Item number 8 on the agenda is a preliminary plan of subdivision for Redeemed Christian Church of God, Victory Temple, case number 4-23041. The subject project proposes 8 lots and 2 parcels for the development of 8 single-family detached dwelling units and 117,355 square feet of institutional development. The application is also subject to an approved certificate of adequacy, case number ADQ-2023-071. The subject property is located to the west of the municipal limits of the city of Bowie. Staff received a letter from the city of Bowie dated November 5th recommending disapproval of the proposed preliminary plan. Specifically, the city raises concerns regarding the proposed extension of Dew Drive located east of the property and within the city limits to serve the 8 proposed single-family residential lots. The city's letter is included as page 3 in the additional backup. Also included in the additional backup are 3 letters from citizens expressing their concerns for the project. The applicant is requesting a continuance of the planning board hearing to December 5th to provide additional time to address the concerns expressed in the city's and the citizens' letters. The applicant's request for continuance is included as page 2 in the additional backup. If the applicant's request for a continuance to December 5th is granted, additional postings will not be required. The public hearing notice signs for this application were posted on the subject site on October 8th, 2024. This concludes staff's presentation. However, staff is prepared for a slide-by-slide presentation should the board request it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. If there's no questions for staff on this request for continuance, I'll turn to Mr. Jackson. You're going to be representing the applicant, is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. All right. Take away, introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours on the request for a continuance.
Yep. My name is Paul Jackson from the law offices of Shipley and Horn on behalf of the applicant. And as Mr. Bartlett said, yes, we're making a request for a continuance to December 5th to address the November 5th City of Bowie letter concerning the extension of Dew Drive in the Woodmore Estate subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant on this request? Seeing none, we do have a number of folks who signed up to speak. I just want to make sure, I'm going to go through the list, but make sure that folks know that all that is before us is a request for a continuance. So that's what you'd be speaking on if you are speaking. Let me flip this around. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this request for a continuance?
I would.
All right, Ms. Adebisi?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, and this is a request for a continuance. This is not a This is not an individual hearing. I don't need to swear you in, but if there's something related to the request for a continuance, please introduce yourself for the record and make yourself heard.
Okay, hello, good morning. I'm Sheila Scott at EBC, and the continuance itself, I don't have an issue with, but the date, that is a conflict. I wouldn't be able to attend, and this is very important, and I would like to be able to attend the meeting. If it's on that date, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that and noted. Appreciate that, Ms. Adebisi. Are there others who want to speak on the request for continuance? I see Mr. Plummer and Ms. Plummer. Anita Plummer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, sir. If you could introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Derek Plummer, resident of Bowie, Maryland, live at 2219 Davenport Court.
You're a little weak, Mr. Plummer. It's hard to hear you a bit.
Is this better if I speak up?
Much better.
All right. My name is Derek Plummer. Live at 2219 Davenport Court, Bowie, Maryland. I have serious concerns with continuance and this applicant's lack of transparency and truthfulness. So we did not learn of this continuance at all as persons of record. We did ultimately find out because it was shared with us through a third party, but yet this applicant continues to be dishonest in its engagement with the community. And one of the issues I definitely have is the lack of community feedback, in that the community has been very vocal about this project for a number of years, and yet that's not even reflected in terms of what the planning board staff has indicated. And so I have serious concerns related to continuance. Many of us are taking off from work to be here, and this applicant refuses to be honest and transparent with the board as well as with the community. So I do have serious concerns about continuance.
Thank you, Mr. Plummer. I appreciate that. Ms. Plummer?
Hi, I also live in Woodmore Estates. I also have a problem with the continuance because the community has organized. We've scrambled ourselves to be here. It was supposed to be last week. It was pushed to this week. So I think it's quite inconvenient for us to push this date into the future.
Thank you, Ms. Plummer. I see Mr. Albert. I believe you want to speak as well as a request for the continuance, correct?
I have issue with a conflict on the 5th. I did intend to speak last week. I do intend to speak this week with respect to the continuance. The subdivision manager, I want to make sure that our concerns as a person of record and neighbor are absorbed and received as well. I did not provide a textual document for this. I intended to speak to those, and if it is continued, I want to either voice those concerns opposing, recommending disapproval, or make sure that they are entered into the record for the subdivision manager's considerations. But
Thank you, Mr. Albert.
I intended to speak to those today.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak on this request for a continuance to December 5th?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Minor.
Yes, sir. On behalf of the city of Bowie, we support the continuance.
Okay, thank you, sir. I see some other raised hands. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anybody. Nope. Okay, we're good to go. There's no one else who's wished to speak. Commissioners, just my quick thought on this is I'm supportive of the continuance. I hear some residents' concerns around Ms. Adebisi, others around their ability to make it. My suggestion is that we support this continuance to December 5th, but if the applicant can work with the residents to see if there is some flexibility there, and if they come back to us with a later date, because that's going to work for more people, I believe we would be open to that. But I'm supportive of where the city of Bowie is, and I'm inclined to support the applicant's request at this point, unless there's further negotiation. But that's just one person's view. Commissioners, I will look to you for any comments or a motion.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman. And I would also, for those who did show up prepared to speak, remind them that they do have the ability to enter information into the record via written testimony. So even if you're not able at the hearing on the designated date, it does not mean that your voice will not be heard.
Thank you for that. And please know that we read the testimony and we take it seriously. So it is worth making that effort. Please know that.
Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of continuance, but I would like perhaps another date in which the people could, and if the applicant would be acceptable to that, to another date, so that the individuals that appeared here today can have their day in court, so to speak.
And before that's addressed, there's also a question. I believe Ms. Plummer is asking, how do they submit written testimony? So if someone could address that in the response, that would be great as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not opposed to the continuance. I think that's fine. I mean, the only other option that we have right now is the week after that, so December 12th, because the action limit is the 14th. Mm-hmm. So for folks to know, like, it would be upon the applicant to extend it beyond that and to waive the action limit. Otherwise, anything that's in the staff report automatically gets adopted within there. So we would need to take action either on the 5th or on the 12th, unless the applicant would want to extend it further. So that's kind of the considerations at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. So commissioners, my recommendation is let's go with the 5th, and then let's see where the applicant wants to go in conversation with the community, in conversation with the city of Bowie. And if they intend to come back to us and ask for a further extension to the 12th, we can consider that. Our calendar on the 12th is pretty crazy. So I'm more inclined to have this on the 5th, though I always want to make sure that the residents' voices are heard in writing as well as in person. Ms. Adebisi, you have your hand up? Yes?
Yes, I have a question about the written submission. Is that read during the hearing, or you're just saying you read it on your own? How is that handled?
Yes, ma'am. We read it on our own. The written testimonies are not read out, but they're part of the record. And the part of the record that we see, that the opposition sees, staff sees it, and we will often ask staff to respond to specific questions that are brought up. So know that if you have written testimony, that your voice is heard and the issues that you bring up are considered.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so commissioners, if there's no further discussion on this, what is your pleasure on this?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request to continue preliminary plan 4-23041 to planning board hearing date of December 5th, 2024.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo for a continuance to December 5th. Under discussion, again, I would say, Mr. Jackson, perhaps with Mr. Minor involved, please have the discussions and with our staff to see if you all do have some measure of flexibility, because you have the ability to extend that. And if it's not a major inconvenience, we've already put this off twice for folks, and I hear that can rub folks the wrong way. It's not the end of the world either way, but if it's neither here nor there and allows people to have their voices heard, I would consider it, okay? But the motion before us is December 5th. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would just like to clarify, because I know there's some citizens here and they're kind of establishing their availability, that the action limit is the last date that you see is the last date. The applicant does not have the ability to waive that.
Oh, does not?
Does not.
So the action limit on this is December 12th, no matter what happens.
Yes, that would be the last available planning board date, correct.
How is that? Either you, Ms. Connor, or Mr. Warner, why does, and pardon me, community, but I need to get educated on this too. Why doesn't the applicant have the right to waive that?
So initially, the subdivision is a 70-day review. They have the ability to waive the first 70, not to exceed another 70 days. So that is the 140-day limit in this case. Oh. The subdivision regulations are a bit different than the zoning ordinance, which would allow an applicant to continue to waive indefinitely.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for my education and for the community as well. Okay, all right, commissioners, if there's no further discussion, I will call the roll for this continuance. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, everybody, for your participation on this request. We'll move on to item 9. Do we need, commissioners, do we need a quick break? We're okay? All right, we'll keep going. Item 9 on our agenda is, hold on one sec. Detailed site plan DET 2024-004 Harmony Garden. This case was moved from the planning board meeting of November 7. We have Mr. Foreman, who is representing the applicant, and Mr. Mitchum, who is representing the staff, who's giving the staff presentation on this. We may have some folks who are signed up to speak as well. This is an evidentiary hearing. I will turn to staff first. Mr. Mitchum for a staff presentation.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I'm Joshua Mitchum with the Urban Design section. The item before you is detailed site plan DET-2024-004 for Harmony Garden, which proposes the development of 67 single-family attached residential dwelling units. The application also seeks alternative compliance from Section 4.10, street trees along streets, of the 2018 Landscape Manual through alternative compliance application ACL-2024-004. The subject site is located on south of the intersection of Old Baltimore Pike and Amandale Way in Planning Area 62 in Council District 1. The DET proposes one model, the Arcadia, which will be 20 feet wide with rear-loaded garages that can accommodate up to 2 vehicles. As a matter of housekeeping, in a phone call that took place yesterday, November 13, 2024, staff spoke with a community member who expressed opposition to the application. The community member expressed concern regarding parking, a lack of infrastructure, and persistent littering issues that they believe will be exacerbated by the approval and development of the application. Furthermore, the applicant submitted an exhibit prior to the noon deadline of November 12, 2024, requesting minor technical revisions to the published technical staff report. Staff has reviewed the proposed revisions and recommends an alternative version or revision to Condition 1C, which will be read into the record as follows. Condition 1C, revise the plan to demonstrate the existing monument sign for North Creek will be removed, or in the alternative, revise the plans to remove the sign pillar, sign column and pillar details from the detail sheet and locations shown on the plans. Lastly, provide the details of the existing or proposed gateway sign with labeling demonstrating conformance to Section 27-61506B or Section 27-7500 of the Prince George's County Zoning Ordinance. Based on evaluation and analysis, Urban Design staff recommend that the Planning Board adopt the findings of this report as modified by staff and as modified by the technical corrections of the applicant's exhibit and approve detailed site plan DET 2024-004, Type 2 Tree Conservation Plan TCP2-041-2024, and alternative compliance ACL-2024-004, subject to the conditions of approval as stated within the technical staff report. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchum. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Seeing none, we'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Foreman. You can introduce yourself and members of the team and take it away.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Nathaniel Foreman. I'm an attorney with the offices of O'Malley, Miles, Nyland, and Gilmore. We are located in Greenbelt. And it is my pleasure to have with me this morning Mr. Sixiao Bai on behalf of the applicant, Potomac Realty Company. I have Phil Hughes and Amy Summer, our civil engineers with Charles P. Johnson and Associates. And on behalf of Lennar, the home builder, I have Kilbort Arrington and Maxwell Potember. I would like to begin by thanking staff for their assistance throughout this process, and that we agree with staff's recommendation of approval with revised findings and conditions, and the one that Mr. Mitchum had also read into the record today. With that being said, I do want to say there is just one caveat that I want to bring to the board's attention so they are aware of it. Our home builder can better explain this if there are questions, but the gist of our concern is that the transparency requirement under Section 27 61203D1 of the Neighborhood Compatibility Standards, which requires a certain level of transparency on the first, second, and third levels of a townhouse, created some awkward conformance issues that we were able to comply with and satisfy, but we do believe impacted the optimal design standards and that consumers prefer. And essentially, the second floor and above were required to provide 20% transparency when facing other single-family attached or detached homes. The practical effect of this is to severely limit the amount of usable wall space for kitchen counters, furniture, where your TV or your couches are, and in some instances, the privacy of the bedrooms for these future residents. And we have no issue with going to meet, the high visibility end unit requirements. We understand that, but we feel that in this instance, the amount of transparency kind of went above and beyond what would be usually, optimal or, and to the point that we think the customer satisfaction could be compromised. Again, we are able to conform with this requirement, but I wanted to bring this to the board's attention for future consideration if revisions to this section were to be considered. Nevertheless, the preliminary plan of subdivision for this case in ADQ, they were before the planning board on November 30th of 2023, and we find ourselves before you almost a year to the day requesting approval of our detailed site plan. And then rather than simply requesting 67 lots to build townhomes on, we are here today asking this board to approve the townhouses to be built. We have worked closely with our home builder, Lennar, in providing a design that is high quality and compatible with the overall neighborhood. Speaking of the neighborhood, we met with the community throughout the preliminary plan and detailed site plan processes to obtain feedback and listen to their concerns. We also made ourselves available to meet with the community and respond to any questions or concerns that arose. We have met all the development, all of the development standards and findings required for the detailed site plan. This use is approved in the CGO zone. It is an appropriate infill development given that it is compatible with the neighborhood and the surrounding uses. Not to mention that the proposed density of 8.6 dwelling units an acre is far below the maximum allowed of 20 dwelling units an acre, and significantly below the maximum density of 48 dwelling units an acre for multifamily units, both of which are allowed in the CGO zone. As a matter of fact, the applicant had originally considered constructing approximately 250 multifamily dwelling units, but scuttled the idea as he did not believe it was right for this development. In sum, and for the reasons included in the case file, the technical staff report, and the comments we made here today, I respectfully request the Planning Board adopt staff's recommendation of approval as amended by the revised findings and conditions. I and the members of my team thank the Chair and the members of the Planning Board for their time and consideration this morning, and we make ourselves available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Much appreciated. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant or members of his team?
Yeah, I have two questions.
Yes.
One is, Mr. Foreman, can you explain a little bit the concern about the second and third floor kind of visibility or privacy that you're trying to raise? Because I don't quite follow. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about like what you're concerned about, and just for your perspective. Like I live in a townhome that's very similar to these kinds of designs. So I'm very familiar with like neighbors in my back alley being able to see in and stuff like that. So I hear that, but I just want to understand why, because I also, from a homeowner's perspective, I absolutely appreciate to have a lot of the natural light coming in from lots of windows. I'm in like an interior unit, not a side unit. So I get lots of light coming from like the east and west when the sun is kind of going over our houses, because we have so much windows. And people can put up blinds and other stuff if they want to have blackout kind of like privacy stuff. But I also view that as a huge way of me saving on energy costs and not having to have the lights and stuff. So I'm just kind of interested in hearing the sort of justification for that. And then the other question is that since you have angled roofs on these units, are you going to be putting in the structure on the roof so you can put in solar? Because on some of the other units that we see very commonly around the county, it's flat roofs on the townhomes, which don't lend themselves quite as well to some of the solar installations, and it's a little bit harder to do. But these might, just from the angles, be a little bit better for that kind of alternative energy use. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more on that.
Mr. Foreman, you there? We lost you for a second.
Yes, sorry, I hit the wrong button. My apologies. No, those are two great questions, Commissioner Dorner. I would ask for Mr. Kilber Arrington from Lennar to respond to your questions. He is much more versed in the requirements of the transparency and also the angles of the roof. So, Mr. Arrington, would you mind? I think you might need to be sworn in first, though.
Yes, sir. You will. Mr. Arrington, if you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, consider yourself under oath. Introduce yourself for the record, and yeah, please take it away.
Very good. My name is Kilber Arrington. I'm the product development manager for Lennar Homes, and we work frequently with developers and communities in the Maryland area to produce homes for communities and for the market in those communities to fit and be successful in that particular market. So we've worked pretty hard on this Harmony Gardens community. When we learned about the transparency requirements based on proximity to adjacent properties, there is I can't quote it exactly, but essentially what it does is it requires that when a building is facing an existing or adjacent community, that we have to increase the amount of windows in a certain facade. So what that does to us, particularly on a townhome plan that's already relatively small on living space, is it starts to create challenges with furnishings, et cetera, and even how you build the home. In short, we're adding more windows. So you're taking away wall space for things like cabinets, like Nate was saying earlier. And you might have a TV wall that we had originally programmed that, floor, that wall for, that's now, gobbled up by the additional windows. We're asking simply if we can get relief on that requirement, because we do believe that our elevations are attractive, and I can show them to you on the screen as they are right now. Adding the windows won't stop us from building the home, but it does create challenges for that particular buyer, and particularly on those home sites that have that specific requirement for the extra windows. So if you can, if I can, I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and share the screen for just a minute.
I think staff can assist. We have the slide presentation up. And perhaps there's an elevation that you want to refer us to.
Sure.
Maybe you could help with this.
I don't know where it is placed in this specific presentation. We'll have to drill down to where the side elevations are of the architecture. So that's
there we go.
Yep, we're almost there. Let's see if we can get to any side elevation sheets.
I have it at slide 14. Oh, we just went past it.
There we go. Okay, and if we zoom in to the right page there, I don't know if you can get that to appear any larger.
That's the front.
Yeah. So right there, do you have the ability to zoom in on the right page or the right sheet? I want to take a look at the 6 side elevations there. Okay. So right now we have 3 windows standard on the second floor. The transparency requirement for additional transparency would mean that I'd have to add a window somewhere on the left side, which is exactly where our kitchen cabinets go. And of course, you can't hang kitchen cabinets and have countertops right there on the window. We can see that on the floor plan in just a minute. And then on the third floor, where you see one window on each end, and then a little tiny, we call a transom window up there in the middle, we'd have to add another 2 windows possibly there. The left side is where the primary home bedroom suite is. So typically that would be our bedroom wall. We're going to narrow that down by putting another window in there and again, force a customer to downsize their bed potentially. And then in addition to that, we're going to have to probably add another window to the left of that narrow window inside the walk-in closet, which takes away a whole wall of shelf space for clothes, etc. And some of you may, I think one of you already said that you live in a townhome. You can imagine where storage is pretty precious in a townhome. This creates challenges for that sort of thing. So we're just asking, that's all, if we can get that kind of relief to not have to put in those extra windows to meet those transparency requirements. As you can see, we've taken steps to make some attractive elevations. We have stone veneers. We have already some nice fenestration on the building, nice gable accents with the round louver, the roof skirt on the bottom of the gable, etc. So it's not what I think doing what the spirit of the law was crafted for. We're avoiding those giant walls of just blank features, with nothing in it. So this is already pre-programmed with those fenestrations and while maximizing the living space inside for our clients.
Okay. And then I think Commissioner Dorner had another question too.
Yeah, just real quick before we jump on to the other one. So the view that what we're talking about is that you have to have more windows on the end units, not interior ones.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually fine with all the explanation right there. I don't live in an end unit, but I've been in them, and I know that it's great to have the side views where you have the lights coming in. This looks fairly good to me in terms of like the number of finishings that you have in there. And absolutely understand the lack of space when you have like the kitchen cabinets and stuff, because you have on one side, for those who don't live in these units, on one side of the kitchen you've got usually a pantry that's small in these kinds of units, and the other side you have the kitchen cabinets. If we take away that space, then you're losing one of the two, and the amount of closet space in these kinds of units is extremely tight. So much so that people have to go out and rent storage units, or you have to figure out how to hang things in the garage above cars. So taking away closet space upstairs and then downstairs in the kitchen, I think is not terribly desirable, and it might actually detract from the finished product on this. So I'm totally on board with those kinds of comments.
Okay. And the second question?
On the solar, yeah.
On solar, are they solar ready or solar installed, or what's the roof situation?
I'll jump in. I don't know exactly if we've considered that specific issue. I think it's something we can certainly look into more. I don't see why, based upon the angles of the roof, there's any prohibition on it. But we're not necessarily prepared to say whether they were or not be solar ready. Part of it is because there is the option for a fourth floor like roof deck area, and that may impact the available space for solar on that. And that is an option the customer can opt into. So I don't know if we want to say that they all are going to be solar ready, because sometimes I think on the model itself it could impact how it could be done. Mr. Arrington, do you have any additional comments to that?
Yeah. Yes. If I may add to that, I would agree with Nate there that we didn't really spend time with dealing with that particular question. But if you go back a few pages, you'll see the front elevations. We have 5 front elevations that we're offering. 3 of those 5 have roof features already built into them, like that right there, the reverse gable. You can go up another page and you'll see another one with dorm windows. And that is limiting for solar panels. And not to mention the fact that they're going to be facing the streets most of the time. And I don't know if we've given thought to or even presented this to the community to discuss what the streetscape impact would be to that. So
would you at least be able to build out the rooftop so it would be able to support solar? Because sometimes the challenge is that these units aren't even built to be able to put the solar on top, that they can't support it. So I understand like the practical concerns, like on the back rear side, if you have like the balcony kind of like patio, I've got one of those on my unit.
Right.
You don't have the ability to put solar, at least like in that particular area. You could still do it potentially on the top of the roof if that turns into a flat one, or if you don't have that unit, then you would have the ability to actually put it on. The challenge becomes that if you guys decide not to build the roof structure to actually support it, then the future homeowners don't even have that option. So I realize that like you're not necessarily going to have them installed immediately on there, but at least building the roof to be able to sustain that for people who want to do that would be, I think, very good in terms of looking ahead to the future.
I don't anticipate that there would be a problem with retrofitting solar panel units onto the roof. They are designed to withstand significant snow loads in this area, at least 30 pounds in that region. And however, I will say this, that could also, the customer would have to be advised that, penetrating the roof with any kind of a panel or attachments could void their warranty, and they need to make an educated decision about that. I could tell you, if we had to go through the process of vetting the product, I can't think of one structural engineer who would answer the question as to whether or not the roof could support anything without first seeing the product proposed and then making their evaluation on that. But in general, I don't think it's a problem for someone to retrofit it, but I could tell you for a fact that would cause warranty issues if should a leak arise around or associated with those solar panels. So it's probably worth a deeper look, maybe a separate conversation. But as of right now, I could tell you that Lennar would not support putting it on.
So my suggestion would be like take the look in terms of like if you can add that as an option, because then you can finance it, you can roll it into the mortgage, right? So if you can do it at an initial build, then you guys would be able to figure out how to potentially offer it as another option and then get it done so it doesn't void the warranty. Because I know that if you puncture any of the wrap on there, you can have huge problems with water leaks and stuff like that coming down. We've had a few neighbors that have had that happen. But if it's an option that the builder can handle it and do it, maybe even on some of the rear sides of these units, that offers additional optionality to the buyer and would make just more attractive kind of features within the area.
I understand. I could propose it, but I can't promise it in this meeting that we would want to move forward with that.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly, I appreciate those comments. And I think if we can explore them and consider them as this product is, going to market as to how exactly it could be done. But I think that is a good suggestion for making them, exploring how to make them potentially consumer ready to be constructed with the solar panels. I just think, as Mr. Kilber said, we just are not in a position to agree to that completely today.
Thank you. So just a couple questions. I don't know, Commissioner Giraldo or Commissioner Washington, if you have any questions. I have a few.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
I didn't see any provision for putting, I know the development isn't that large, but at least dog waste stations for the homeowners?
We are across the street from Park and Planning owned property right next to the Vansville Elementary School. And I think they may have facilities, but if they don't, we can certainly explore the implementation of possibly, a dog waste station.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so just a couple. One is, this is a question for staff. In terms of the fenestration and the transparency, how much flexibility, I mean, this is detailed site plan. How much flexibility do we have on that? Because I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Dorner. I'm happy, based on what I have heard, I'm happy to give them the discretion to design that a little bit more the way they're inclined to. Do we have that ability, right? We can make that decision if we choose to.
I would have to also defer to council, but from my understanding, this isn't something that can be deviated from at this stage. It is hard coded into the zoning ordinance, but that's my position at this time.
Okay, Mr. Mitchum. Yeah, Mr. Warner or Ms. Connor, do you know about if we do or don't have that flexibility, or is Mr. Mitchum correct?
So I can speak to just the general requirement for development standards. Yes, there are a number of them that don't provide the kind of discretion that the planning board normally has to make the best choices about the design of a project. I believe, in my experience, this is one of those provisions that doesn't allow for any kind of discretion or a departure. The council did limit that quite significantly for a number of the development standards. I know we were looking at that a little bit in CB15, but Sherry, I don't recall if we did anything that changed this particular provision. We did look at some transparency issues, but do you recall?
And actually, go ahead, Ms. Connor. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to agree with Mr. Warner, and to the analysis has been provided in the technical staff report, and to what Mr. Mitchum has provided.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like, Mr. Foreman, you even recognize yourself in your language that you can confer, you can meet the standards that we have required, and you're asking us to look at this down the road, see if we can find some more flexibility. So it sounds like that's our only option on this. So thank you. In terms of the solar, I had a bit of a reaction to Mr. Arrington, what you were saying. I've been doing this a long time, and I can't tell you how many folks come to us with solar-ready townhomes. And you are a major, major home builder. I can't imagine that I'm just shocked, if I may say, that the idea of solar-ready townhomes just can't be done.
I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that it's not part of our usual array of product offerings and options for our customers. Before we get there, we have to really carefully evaluate the product proposed and the impact to the structure. So not at all saying that it can't be done. I'm just saying that it is not in our programming. And as far as national builders go, we are the second largest builder in the country. And I don't even know of another national builder that does this, even as an option. Maybe a smaller regional builder that's willing to be that flexible, but for most of us larger builders, it's been an area that we've just kind of shied away from. Maybe we need to take another look at it and see what.
Yeah.
So,
please.
I think it's more about Prince George's County being on the vanguard of asking these situations, asking for this, and some of the larger national builders working in other jurisdictions aren't getting this question because maybe they're not as those reviewing agencies aren't as concerned with it. So I think that's just something that sounds like Mr. Arrington will have to take back to shop and see what they can do and what products they can work on and revise.
And thank you. And Ms. Connor, if you can sort of work this into with Director Hall and others, just a little research around this too, because again, you've been doing this a while, Ms. Connor. We get a lot of product that is solar ready. So I'm trying to understand the disconnect between that and what I'm hearing now. And it just might be my ignorance, but I'm a bit shocked. But so it sounds like on both these issues, we don't, you've heard us on the solar. We don't have much flexibility on the elevation, on the transparency. Let me get back to our process here. If there's no other questions for staff or for the applicant. Commissioner.
Just real quick. So I don't think it's true that nobody in this area does solar. In fact, I know that's wrong.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm 100% with you, and that's why we're going to have staff look at it, because like I know, that's not our experience at all.
Yeah, there are rough-end. Your competition provides rough-end ready floor plans. And they operate in Prince George's County, and there's stuff that's going into DC right now that
all the time. Yeah.
And so I'm with you. Definitely looking into it.
Again, I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that I'm not aware. That's all.
Okay. With you. Okay. All right. So We have one person who signed up to speak on this. I don't know if she's here. Is Wanda Myers here on the line? Ms. Myers? Okay, so we have no one who signed up to speak on this case. Are there any other questions for staff or for the applicant? If not, let me turn to you, Mr. Foreman, if you want the final word on this before we close this public hearing.
No, thank you. I think this has just been a very interesting conversation over the transparency for neighborhood compatibility standards. I appreciate your consideration of how that standard could be tweaked or modified going forward. And I also thank you for the discussion on the solar panels, solar readiness. And it sounds like that's just something that we as a team will have to consider what we can do with this product and maybe what Lennar can do going forward with other products in this county. Otherwise, we do agree with staff's recommendation and with their revised findings and conditions of approval, and ask for this planning board to approve the detailed site plan, the alternative compliance, and the TCP2.
And did I hear correctly that you were proffering dog waste stations if they are not in the park across the street?
Yes, we will offer one dog waste station if it's not they're not in the park across the street. Thank you.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to make sure.
Thought I heard that too.
Right, there we go. All right, so with that, I will close this public hearing. Commissioners, any deliberation, or if not, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff to include the finding as modified by applicant exhibit number 1 and approve DET-2024-004, ACL-2024-004, and TCP2-041-2024, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff's report and conditions 1, J, M, and N as modified by applicant exhibit number 2, and condition 1C as modified and read into the record by staff, with the addition of applicant proffered condition with regards to dog waste stations, if there is not one provided across the street at the park.
Second.
Appropriate language to be drafted.
Second.
Commissioner Washington's made the motion. Commissioner Giraldo has seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
Vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you all very much for the time and for the fruitful conversation. Much appreciated. Mr. Bai, good to see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, all the board members. Thank you. Very great.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, we're moving on to item 10 on our agenda. This is a remand by the District Council for a detailed site plan, DSP 19031-02 Popeyes. The case was moved from the Planning Board meeting of November 7th. The case was approved at the Planning Board meeting of April 25th, 2024, and remanded by the District Council on September 6th, 2024. We have Mr. Hijazi, who's representing the applicant on this. This actually is an evidentiary hearing, this remand. I don't think we have anyone else who signed up to speak in opposition. We will hear from staff, Mr. Huang first, and then we will hear from Mr. Hijazi. Mr. Huang.
Okay, now it's 4 minutes after 12 o'clock, so good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, sir.
For the record, my name is Emery Huang with Urban Design. Item number 10 is detailed site plan DSP-19031-02 for Popeyes, which proposes to amend detailed site plan DSP-19031 to develop a 2,923 square foot eating and drinking establishment with drive-through service on Parcel 3. This DSP was approved by the Planning Board on April 25th, 2024, and a final resolution number 2024-029 was adopted on May 16, 2024, with 5 conditions. On June 10th, 2024, the District Council elected to review this application and conduct oral arguments on July 15th, 2024. At the oral argument meetings, People's Zoning Council agreed with the Planning Board's approval of this DSP, but advised the council that the planning board's resolution contained significantly more conditions than normally and suggested that the council could remand the case to the planning board to have some of these conditions addressed so that the DSP would be more completed. The order of remand was issued by the District Council on September 16, 2024. The order of remand found that the application could not have been accepted and directed the applicants either withdraw its application and abandon the project or submit a revised application, schedule another evidential hearing, and transmit a revised or amended decision. On October 3rd, 2024, the applicant submitted a revised DSP to address conditions 1, 2, and 3 on page 21 through 24 of the resolution number 2024-029. On October 24, 2024, an amended technical staff report along with a memorandum was published in responding to the instruction of the order of remand. Conditions 4 and 5 will be retained in the amended technical staff report as they require the recording of the documents and the requirement that they may only be applied subsequently to the approved of DSP. Urban Design Staff recommended that the planning board approves detailed site plan DSP-19031-02 and issue a new resolution to supersede Prince George County Planning Board's resolution number 2024-029. This concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huang. Commissioners, questions for staff on this remand? No questions. We'll turn to the applicant, Mr. Hijazi.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Board. Abdullah Hijazi here on behalf of the applicant, Three Roads Corner, LLC.
Mr. Hijazi, hold on one sec for me. Mr. Warner, do I need to swear Mr. Hijazi in?
He's an attorney.
You're an attorney?
Yes, Chair.
I apologize, sir. Keep going.
No problem. So again, Abdullah Hijazi here from the firm of Hijazi and Carroll on behalf of the applicant, Three Roads Corner, LLC. We thank Mr. Wang for all of his hard work on this twice now, and we have no problem with the two proposed conditions and agree with the staff recommendations and are available for any questions. With me here today is Mr. Nicholas Speech from Bowler Engineering and Mr. Mike Lenhart from the traffic engineer of record as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hijazi. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant on this remand request? Seeing none, we have no one else who signed up to speak on this issue. Nobody? Nope. Then I'm going to close this public hearing. And commissioners, what is your pleasure on the remand request?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff memorandum dated October 23rd, 2024, and approve DSP-19031-02, subject to the four specific issues with regards to the order of remand, and issue a new resolution to supersede PGCPB resolution number 2024-029.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Commissioner Giraldo. The language of the motion was perfect. Me thinking of this as a request was not perfect. This is an order of remand, not a request. So we have a motion before us, seconded by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Hijazi. And thank you, Mr. Huang.
All right, take care.
We're on item 11 on our agenda. This is a detailed site plan DSP 20008-01 Hope Village Phase 2. This case was moved from the planning board meeting of November 7th, 2024. Mr. Tedesco is representing the applicant. Mr. Meyerholtz is going to be giving the staff presentation. Again, this is an evidentiary hearing. If we have folks who are signed up to speak, we will swear them in at the appropriate time, and turn it over to staff. Mr. Meyerholtz.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I am David Meyerholtz with the Urban Design Section. Item number 11 is detailed site plan DSP-20008-01, which proposes 249 single-family attached townhouse dwelling units with associated infrastructure and recreation facilities to be located in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Maryland 223 Woodyard Road and Marlboro Pike. As part of the application, the applicant has requested alternative compliance from the requirements of sections 4.6 and 4.10 of the 2010 Prince George's County Landscape Manual. As a matter of housekeeping, this application has been continued from the November 7th Planning Board meeting to today's Planning Board meeting. Prior to the November 12th noon deadline, the applicant submitted Applicant's Exhibit 1 as additional backup, which includes revised findings and conditions proposed by the applicant. Staff has reviewed the revised findings and condition and agree with the proposed changes, which pertain to noise mitigation. A condition of approval from the preliminary plan of subdivision for this site requires noise mitigation consistent with the noise control section of the current zoning ordinance. The applicant submitted a noise study documenting the mitigation strategies necessary to meet this condition, to which staff agreed would be obtrusive and inconsistent with the neighborhood character. The revised conditions in Applicant's Exhibit 1 address the noise mitigation issue in a manner consistent with the intent of the noise control section in the zoning ordinance. Based on this evaluation and analysis, Urban Design staff recommend that the Planning Board adopt the findings of this report, including the revisions in the Applicant's Exhibit 1, and approve detailed site plan DSP-20008-01, alternative compliance AC-24004, and Type 2 tree conservation plan TCP2-043-2020-01, subject to the recommended conditions of approval within the technical staff report and within Applicant's Exhibit 1. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Meyerholtz. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Clarifying question. When you mentioned alternative compliance, could you confirm it's AC-24007?
Correct. That was a typo on my script. The AC is confirmed as AC-24007. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's turn to the applicant representative, Mr. Tedesco.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. For the record, Matthew Tedesco with the law firm of McNamee Hosey. Along with me is Dominic Lockhart, who is our senior land use planner. We also have representatives of the applicant, CBR Woodyard LLC, Mr. Ed Gold and Mr. Richard Gold. From Charles P. Johnson and Associates, Mr. Phil Hughes and Amy Somer, who are the civil engineers for the project. Ms. Erica Ebersol from Phoenix Noise and Vibration is with us, and Mr. Mike Lenhart from Lenhart Traffic Consulting. I do not anticipate, Mr. Chairman, anybody needing to speak unless there are any questions that I'm unable to answer. I certainly want to thank Mr. Meyerholtz and your urban design staff, as well as your division chief, for working with us with this application in particular. We did have a lot of correspondences back and forth with respect to one of the conditions from the preliminary plan of subdivision, which ultimately proved fairly restrictive. And instead of coming back before you and asking for a reconsideration and cleaning that up, we were able to successfully work with both the applicant, the design team, and your staff to get to I think an acceptable resolution as memorialized in Applicant's Exhibit 1. And want to certainly thank staff, Mr. Meyerholtz, as I mentioned, urban design staff, Ms. Garland and Ms. Connor and Ms. Kozak for their assistance in working through that. We really don't have too much to offer in addition to what's in your staff report. We would submit on our justification statements. This has been a long time coming project. It is a mixed use project, purposely rezoned to the MXT zone as part of the Subregion 6 master plan back in 2018. You have seen various components of this application going back to February of 2020. And most recently, the preliminary plan of subdivision of April of this year. So we are very hopeful and optimistic that this will conclude at least entitlement portion as it relates to this mixed-use project in and near the Westphalia Town Center. And we have been working with the community throughout this lengthy process with the help of GS Proctor & Associates. So with that, Mr. Chairman, obviously happy to answer any questions. For the benefit of the planning board members, we do have a number of dog waste stations and a condition of approval to have a minimum number of those, not only at the open space areas, at the active activity areas, but also throughout the project. There are a number of sidewalk connections as well as a master plan shared use path along Woodyard Road. So we have accommodated residents with pets, in particular with those dog waste stations, and those will be provided and further depicted on the certified plan. But that is a condition of approval, and we were happy to oblige to accommodate those. Gratuitously, just wanted to offer that, but other than that, Mr. Chairman, we're happy to submit on the staff report as requested to be revised pursuant to Applicant's Exhibit 1, as well as the recommended conditions, which we agree with as revised by Applicant's Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Mr. Tedesco. Commissioners, any questions or compliments for the applicant? You're on mute, Commissioner Giraldo.
Definitely compliment, Mr. Tedesco. Thank you very much. We have to think about our furry friends.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We have no one else who signed up to speak on this. I will, unless there's any objection to it, I will close the public hearing. Mr. Meyerholtz, was this the first time you presented to us, or you presented before?
This is my first presentation, yes.
Well, congratulations. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well done. If there's no further comments or questions or thoughts or reactions, and there's no deliberation, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff to include the amended findings as outlined in applicant exhibit number 1 and approve DSP-2008-01, AC-24007, and TCP2-043-2020-01 to include the conditions as outlined in staff's report and is further modified by applicant exhibit number 1.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Washington, second by Commissioner Giraldo. No discussion. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Tedesco, and thanks again, Mr. Meyerholtz. Well done.
Thank you very much.
We are now on item 12 on our agenda. This is a request for reconsideration hearing for preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23008 Capital Beltway 2. Please note this case was moved from the planning board meeting of November 7th, 2024. The preliminary plan of subdivision was approved by the planning board on September 5. The resolution was adopted by the planning board on September 26. Fort Washington Ford has requested a reconsideration hearing for the approval of 4-23008. Mr. Haller will be representing the applicant on this. I think I've covered it all. Ms. Gupta, we'll start with you. Then we'll hear from Mr. Haller.
Mr. Chairman, we'll hear from Mr. Giraldo first.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Commissioner Giraldo.
Yes, I'm going to abstain myself from this.
Okay, you'll recuse yourself on this one?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we do have one more case, Commissioner. It's a brief one. So don't go too far away.
I'll be here.
Just to interrupt, as far as our processes go, when you're recusing yourself in a virtual hearing, you turn the camera off, turn your mic off, and then
I'm doing it.
Jessica should, let Mr. Giraldo know when we're back on the next item.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, I think this is a continuance. Isn't this a request for continuance to hear the request for reconsideration?
No, Commissioner Washington, this is actually going to be, we're going to open the hearing and then we're going to request a continuance because this is a reconsideration hearing.
Got it. Okay, just for my edification. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you for that clarification. Let me make sure I'm with us on this, building off Commissioner Washington. At the end of the day, our process is we're going to open up this hearing. But what will be before us once we open the hearing will be a consideration of a continuance. Is that right, Mr. Warner?
Correct. I mean, I would call it a recess, but either way.
No, let's get the language right. All right. So
our rules call it a recess. We will recess
right.
to a later date.
Okay. All right. So we'll open the hearing and then we'll discuss the potential for the recess. And that's how we'll take it up. So let's start with Ms. Gupta.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Doing a sound check again. Is it better
Yes,
now?
we can hear you fine.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Mridula Gupta with the subdivision section. Item number 12 on the agenda is a reconsideration request for preliminary plan of subdivision 4-23008, Capital Beltway 2. The planning board approved the preliminary plan on September 5th, 2024, and the resolution was adopted on September 26th. By letter dated October 3rd, 2024, Fort Washington Forward, a party of record, requested a reconsideration of the planning board's approval of 4-23008. This request for reconsideration was scheduled to be heard at the planning board's November 7th hearing. However, that hearing was cancelled and the request was moved to today, November 14th, 2024 hearing. The applicant's attorney, Mr. Tom Haller, submitted a letter dated November 11th, 2024, requesting, I'll call it recess instead of continuance, of the hearing to November 21st, 2024 planning board hearing date due to a scheduling conflict. The applicant has also submitted into the record their response to Fort Washington Forward's request for reconsideration. Several exhibits were also received in support of the request of reconsideration. These exhibits are also included in the additional backup. Since the request for reconsideration directly impacts the applicant, their representation during the hearing is necessary. Due to this reason, staff recommend that the planning board approve the applicant's request for recess of the reconsideration from today, November 14th, to November 21st, 2024. The requestor for the reconsideration, Fort Washington Forward, has indicated that they agree to the recess. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gupta. We do not have, do we have Mr. Haller with us today?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Haller. I just finished a hearing that was in conflict with the board's hearing, and I'm in the car. But again, since I requested the continuance and sent that request to all parties of record, I believe it would be in best interest of fairness to recess the hearing until November 21st, since the requester of the reconsideration has consented as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Mr. Haller. We do have a number of folks who signed up to speak, and really what's before us, even though this hearing is open and we're considering recess, but what's before us is the consideration to continue this to go into recess and continue this to November 21st. So that's what I would like to see if we have folks who want to speak to that issue. I do see we have a few delegates, elected officials who are signed up. I want to offer them the courtesy of going first. Delegate Woods, are you on the line, and do you want to speak to this request for the recess and continuance to the 21st?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Delegate Woods. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I am in agreement to the recess until November 21st.
Thank you, Delegate. Appreciate that. Is Delegate Valderrama with us as well? No? Okay. I also have a Mr. Kerr.
He had to step off.
All right. Mr. Owens, are you there?
I am here, Chairman.
If you could identify yourself for the record, and do you have anything you want to add on this request for the continuance?
Yeah, this is Dave Owens. I'm a board member of Fort Washington Forward. We were the requester, and I think it made sense initially when the request was made to move it to November to the 21st. I would also say that if the parties are here and ready to speak, then we are open to doing that today as well. I mean, people have taken off time from work to do that, and so I think that either way really works with us. We hate to keep pushing this back, especially for people who are working. So if Mr. Haller is amenable to it, I mean, I think that we can move forward with this. It either way works for us.
Okay. Mr. Owens, thank you for that. Let's hear from a few other folks on the list just to make sure I'm capturing everybody. I have Leilani Larkin. How about a James Lawson? And Mr. Weiss, Ron Weiss. Are you there, Mr. Weiss? Okay, the other one, no, I think that's it. That's all the folks that we have. So what's before us is us to consider the recess until the 21st. What I'm hearing from you, Mr. Owens, is that you're actually okay to proceed now. I'm not sure the applicant is ready to do that or staff is ready to do that, but let me check in with them. Mr. Haller, are you still on the line?
I am, Mr. Chairman. I'm still here. I mean, since there were people that you called who did not respond, it would worry me that they did not stay on because of the request for continuance, and I certainly don't want to deny anybody the opportunity to speak to the planning board on this request. Having said that, if it's the board's prerogative, I mean, if the board determines that they want to hear the case today, I would ask that you take the next item on the agenda first to give me the opportunity to get back in front of my computer. But that is obviously up to the board's discretion as to what to do on this request.
Okay, Commissioners, I'm more inclined to continue this to the 21st just to make sure that everybody's prepared so we don't rush through something that feels like it could be might take some brain power. So if that's all right with you, again, I would look for, unless there's anyone else who's speaking on this, I'd look for a motion to continue this, to recess this hearing, and we'll take it back up on the 21st.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve.
Actually, hold on one sec. I'm not sure we need a motion to recess, Mr. Warner, do we? Can I just say we're recessing this to the 21st?
You should have a motion.
We do? Okay. All right, Commissioner, go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the applicant's request to recess preliminary plan 4-23008, request for consideration to planning board hearing date of November 21st, 2024.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Dorner. If there's no discussion on this, I will call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 3-0. So we are recessing this and we'll pick it back up in the 21st. I want to thank everybody for your time today. We'll see you all in a week.
Thank you very much.
And finally, we have Commissioner Giraldo, if you could pull your fingers out of your ears and come back and join us. We have a quorum anyhow, so item 13 on our agenda is specific design plan STP 2205 Parkland and Rock Creek. The case was moved from the planning board meeting of November 7th as well. We have Mr. Tedesco, who is representing the applicant. And we have Mr. Mitchum, who's giving a staff presentation. I don't think we have anyone who's signed up to speak on this one as well, besides members of the applicant's team. We'll turn to staff. Mr. Mitchum, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Joshua Mitchum with the Urban Design Section. The item before you is Specific Design Plan SDP 2205 for Parkland and Rock Creek, which requests approval for the development of 514 dwelling units, which consists of 416 single-family attached and 98 single-family detached residential units. The application also seeks alternative compliance from Section 4.6, buffering residential developments from streets, of the 2010 Landscape Manual through alternative compliance application AC-23014. The subject site is located on the north side of Westphalia Road, approximately 1/3 of a mile west of its intersection with Ritchie Marlboro Road in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. The site is located in Planning Area 78 and Council District 6. As a matter of housekeeping, the applicant submitted an exhibit prior to the noon deadline of November 12, 2024, requesting minor technical revision to the published technical staff report. Staff has reviewed the exhibit and is in agreement with the proposed technical corrections contained within the applicant's exhibit. Based on evaluation and analysis, urban design staff recommend that the planning board adopt the findings of this report as modified by the technical corrections of the applicant's exhibit and approve specific design plan SDP 2205, Type 2 Tree Conservation Plan TCP 2-035-2024, and alternative compliance AC-23014, subject to the conditions of approval as stated within the technical staff report. And this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. If there's no questions for staff, we'll turn to Mr. Tedesco.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, again, and members of the Planning Board. For the record, Matthew Tedesco on behalf of the applicant, Stanley Martin Homes, LLC. With me is also Dominique Lockhart, Senior Land Use Planner, as well as Sean Day from Stanley Martin Homes, and from Rogers Consulting, our land planners, environmental consultants, and civil engineers, Nat Ballard and Rob Swam. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the agenda maker for saving the best for last, and also thank Mr. Mitchum for his presentation this afternoon for this very important project, one that we're all very proud of. We have been working on the overall concept and/or development of this quadrant of the Westphalia area for a number of years. I think the original CSP for the Overlook project, which is to the east on your screen, back in 2018. You all saw this particular phase of the project with the comprehensive design plan back in March of 2022, and more recently the preliminary plan of subdivision in May of 2023. From the case number being SDP 2205, you can tell that we have actually been working on this for quite a while. The property does create some challenges and uniqueness with respect to some of the environmental features. There's a master plan road that bisects the entire linear footage of the property, connecting Ritchie Marble Road down to Westphalia Road, and ultimately will be combined with a project that you all approved recently to the south, known as the Meadows. Overall, these three projects will comprise of an offering by Stanley Martin that will consist of a development known as Westmore. The project that is platted to the east, it's currently under construction, is known as the Overlook, which is formerly the preserve at Westphalia. We have this portion, which is Parkland and Rock Creek, and then the Meadows, which was previously known as Woodside Village. Comprehensively, you all approved back in July a very substantial community building with a pool and recreational amenity, notwithstanding as outlined in your staff report and in our submission. These projects still will have their own individual amenities, but we have added a very large clubhouse and pool facility that will serve all of these projects under one common HOA. Stanley Martin is very excited to bring this offering to the county and in this particular part of the county, as well as the highly amenitized offerings that this project brings. And for the planning board's benefit, one of those amenities does include a dog park and the associated facilities that go with that, to and include pet waste stations throughout the community. All of these communities will be connected either by roads, streets, sidewalks, master plan alignment, et cetera. So when it's all said and done, this is going to be one of those projects comprehensively envisioned, comprehensively designed, that is going to be kind of the staple for at least this western portion of Westphalia as Westphalia continues to build out. So it's one we've worked on for many, many years, one we're extremely proud of, and look forward to having it come to complete fruition in the coming years. And with that, Mr. Chairman, other than the very minor technical edits to one finding and then requested a clarification to some conditions in applicant's Exhibit 1, we are in agreement with staff's recommendations and findings, and we would submit on the justification statements that have been submitted in this application as further evidence before you this afternoon, and would just respectfully request your continued support for this project and approval of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Tedesco. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a quick question for Mr. Tedesco. So I think the answer is yes, because I've seen them online. But does Stanley Home offer solar on these homes, whether the detached or attached homes?
Yeah, Thank you for the question, Commissioner Dorner. So it's one of those things, and I was kind of confused a little bit by the prior case. So all of the Stanley Martin homes are constructed and built to give the flexibility to the homeowner that if they choose and want to have solar, the homes are constructed in such a way that they can support the solar on the roof. So again, it's to the discretion of the homeowner. There's no restrictions in the HOA documents that prevent it. A lot of things go into that, as you know, with respect to roof sizes, roof angles, roof directions, on whether it financially makes sense. But any homeowner of this community that will wish to have solar be provided by a solar provider, their homes will be constructed in such a way that it will be facilitated.
Thank you. That's what I thought.
Thank you. Other questions? No other questions. We have no one else to sign up to speak on this. If there are no other questions, I'll close this public hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the findings of staff and the findings as modified by applicant exhibit number 1 and approve SDP-22005, AC-23014, and TCP2-035-2024, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff's report and as further modified by applicant exhibit number 1.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Washington, a second by Commissioner Giraldo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
Vote aye. Thank you, Stanley Martins.
Commissioner Dorner.
Vote aye.
I vote aye as well. The ayes have it 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Tedesco. And thanks again, Mr. Mitchum. Ms. Connor, any further business to come before the planning board today?
No further items today. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Commissioners, without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for all your time today.
Have a good rest of the day, all. Bye.
Yep. And have a good weekend.